I tried to make a voice note about a question over this energy field or Kundalini or whatever, and I feel I want to explain to you where it started and how it scared the living shit out of me at first, and how it skyrocketed at your retreat, and how I breathed through but wanted to ask you what it was. And you said, Kundalini energy, don't give it much attention. I think I understand why you said that, because it could easily turn into an experience hunter. But when you or Louise ask, what's your actual experience? This is the only actual experience I could speak about. But I kind of don't, because I find it embarrassing. But I truly feel it's some sort of guide. And I also feel I'd like guidance with it, because to simply be present with it often intensifies, and I'm scared. The fear might be trauma related, or I go into longing for it to just come times 100, catapult me out. So I can't feel the fear anymore, which the rational mind knows will pass anyway. In India, it was there all the time, softly, and I feel to go back and follow a Kundalini teacher training, which might be absolutely ridiculous as a plan, like why you can't teach this stuff. But I mainly just feel the need to be closer to it and learn about it and how to stay present with it or something. That's the opposite of the advice you gave me to not give it too much attention, so I'm curious. What do you think? To be honest, I can't remember your description of it. So I have a different feeling coming up, so I'm just going to go with that, because if you were there, then you could just comment a little bit about your description of it. So yeah, Kundalini is fascinating, and I don't really know so much about Kundalini, even though I've had Kundalini experiences. But I see Kundalini as often clearing out of everything. So what I feel happens here is that when you go from being in the head to the body, so from looking at life, and this often happens before awakening, but it can happen after. So when you go from moving from the head to the body, I feel like the experience of things is often through the chakra centers and not so much through thought, even though thought is there and can be used. So if somebody is violating a boundary, you might feel it as an energy in the heart, not necessarily an emotion, but an energy. So we have the chakra centers, and they kind of like traffic lights of instructing the movement of this body. And there's also great depth to them as well, with health and with relating to the environment. But if we just go for it on a simple basis, it's like you and chakras are all over the body, so they're not just in these centers, but you go, so when you go more into the body, you experience things a lot more energetically. And then often what can happen is you have these big, strong Kundalini awakenings that can shoot through the body, that can like suddenly open the heart and the head. You know, you can feel like your head is like growing, all types of different weird things. And sometimes they can be so intense that people can't handle it. You know, it's like, ooh, the energy like explodes through them. So it's different for everybody. So that's one thing that can happen. That's the Kundalini stuff. And more than when I say that to people in the past, it's often when I feel like they can handle it, but they shouldn't give it too much attention, because it can be very magical, very pleasant. It also can be very scary and very unpleasant as well. And that's the way that I was taught, was to not give these experiences too much attention. But there can be something else that happens that is prior to the Kundalini. So the prior part is, it actually, if you're going to say anything of what it feels like, is it feels like being stoned. you've ever been stoned before, but not as if you're drugged, but more as in the stone feeling where you don't really have a center point. So not feeling drugged or queasy, but more like you don't have a center point, so you feel quite expanded. But that might be really hard to differentiate, because maybe until you've had the shift, you won't really know what's being talked about. So, but what it is it stops being a back on things. So it stops feeling like there is something experiencing here. And then I used to describe it like a marshmallow man, like you become inflated, but you've got no back as well. You're everywhere, but you're also nowhere. And it can be very loving and blissful. And this isn't Kundalini. This is the collapsing of the personal self. And this is when there is the movement to no mind and no self. So it's not really emotional. It's more like an emptiness that's transpiring, but also a fullness. And the sensations in the body is very blissful and very loving. But you sometimes can get that with Kundalini, which can make it really confusing. Yeah. So you could also explore the Kundalini stuff if you feel like it's Kundalini with a Kundalini teacher. There are some books, I think, on my reference page, but not many. I don't really know so many Kundalini teachers. There is one I know in Mumbai. Yeah. It's a complex subject. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. Please. There is a cool non-duality Kundalini teacher called Craig Holliday on YouTube. Cool, thank you for sharing that. That's for that question earlier. He's a pro and also does sessions if you're interested. That is great.